The National Archives stonewalls the GOP. Of course, you know Miss Debra Steidel-Wall. She was the individual who was in charge of the National Archives back when Trump was in office, and she is still currently in charge of the National Archives today. And she sent a letter over to the new House Oversight Committee because James Comer, this fella here, sent her a letter earlier, and they finally responded because we want to know what the head librarian has to say about all of this stuff. She's the person who apparently knows where all the classified documents are. She was very upset that Trump had some outstanding overdue library books, and it was such a problem for her that she referred it over to the DOJ, and then they raided his house. But we have a question for her in particular. Why were you so upset over Trump's documents and not over Joe Biden's documents? We want to know what the head librarian, the person who is, I guess, the most powerful person in the whole country, because she gets to say whether or not the president can classify or declassify documents. She said, no, Trump had no authority to do that. Those are my library books, and therefore he is a criminal. She made the referral over to the DOJ. They took it from there, got the FBI involved, and the rest is history. So NARA, the National Archives, you remember her. She doesn't like Trump, in my humble opinion. I don't know this for fact, but I could just sense it based on this interaction, which we've played here several times on the show. But remember this, Trump is the president. We've got Melania standing to his right. The room is filled with people, accolades. They've got different things over their shoulders, symbolizing something. I don't know. But to Trump's right, you'll notice this woman right here, Debra Steidel-Wall. Oh, it's the ratification of the 19th Amendment, so women can vote. Yeah, and here Trump is taking a look over his shoulder, and he doesn't really know who it is. And he makes a crack about the National Archives, about a lot of archives. So there's a lot of paper in that room, and Debra doesn't like it.
Debra Steidel-Wall, Deputy Archivist of the United States.
Right here, over there.
Sounds like a very big job. That's a lot of archives, isn't it? How many buildings does that take up, right? Great job. I hear you do a great job. Thank you very much.
She didn't like it. She didn't like it. See that eye blink right there? How many buildings is that one? That right there, her eyes are closed. She's going like this. Oh, this idiot. Oh, this white Cheeto Nazi insurrectionist. She doesn't like it at all. And so that's the moment, my friends. This is where this all started. I know a lot of people think this is about, other things. This is it. She didn't like that crack, and she decided she's going to take him out for the rest of the country.
Buildings does that take up, right?
Look.
Great job. I hear you do a great job. Thank you very much.
Oh, she didn't like that, man. I want Ultra HD on that one because you can tell. That was the moment. She said, that's it. All right, I want my library books back. You're in big trouble, buddy boy. She wrote the letter over to the DOJ, and boy, Trump had his house raided. She's powerful. Be careful. We're big fans of Debra on this channel. What's up, Debra? Okay, don't raid our property. I don't have any of your library books. All right. So James Comer is in the House of Representatives, and he is saying that he's going after the National Archives because it feels like they're a little bit biased. They didn't like Trump's joke, right? They didn't like Trump. He was just being affable and personable. It was a funny joke. I don't know how many buildings there are, but she took it a little personal. And now the Republicans are looking back at what they have done. James Comer says, we're going after the National Archives. We want to know what they did, what their communication was, because they initiated a bunch of this stuff. And why were there certain standards for Donald Trump, but not the same standards applied for Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden, as we now know, got a letter from the DOJ. His attorneys were told to stop looking for documents. At that moment in time, the National Archives knew there were outstanding documents. We know that the Biden lawyers were continuing to look for those documents. So if Debra Steidel-Wall is so concerned about people having access to classified materials who shouldn't have access to classified materials, why didn't she apply the same rules that she applied to Trump to Biden when Biden's lawyers were still rummaging around? Or maybe she did. Did they send letters back and forth? Were there meetings? What was the backstory here? James Comer says he's going to dig into it.
About what I'm sure is a buzz right now in Washington. Do you plan your thoughts?
Yes, we've already requested information. As we speak, these letters are going out. We're asking the head of the National Archives to come in and let us do a transcribed interview with that individual. We also have requested specific information from both the White House counsel and the National Archives pertaining to what went on with Biden's possession of classified information. Remember, Joe Biden was quick to criticize President Bush for having possession of apparent classified documents. He said that was irresponsible and reckless. Now we see that he did the same thing. Even worse, we see that there was a cover-up. This happened November the 2nd, the discovery of the classified documents at the Biden Center. But we're just now finding out about it because CBS broke the story last night. So obviously, Joe Biden continues his pattern of not being transparent at all. He continues his pattern of cover-ups. We want to know exactly the same things we've asked about Trump. What type of documents does he have? And is the FBI going to raid the residence of Joe Biden like they did the residence of President Trump?
Obviously, the answer to that question is no, but Comer was right. He actually did send in a letter to NARA, the National Archives. And so we are going to read through that right now. We're then going to hear the response from NARA because Debra responded. She wrote back to him. She said, well, here's what you're going to get from us, and it ain't going to be much. But before we look at all of that, let's talk about survival food and survival gear and our friends over at 4Patriots, because as you know, a food shortage, it could be coming. Look what's going on in the grocery stores with eggs and so on. Experts have written about this. It's all over the place. We've got drought, inflation, new economic policies, international war. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriots survival food kits. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years, super survival food. Stuff is hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. These kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, stack easily. Many different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, save 10% off anything in the store, including a 3-month survival kit. 3 months! You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of all sales are donated to charities that support our veterans and their families. And you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, start saving today, build your stockpile, and get prepared at 4patriots.com. All right, my friends. And so thank you for supporting our sponsors here and our friends over at 4Patriots. Now let's turn our attention over to the letter from Mr. James Comer. Comer sends a letter January 10th to Debra Steidel-Wall, the acting archivist of the United States. And he says, hey, Deb. All right, we're in charge now. And the Committee on Oversight and Accountability is investigating whether there is a political bias at your organization called NARA, the National Archives. He says, for months, NARA failed to disclose to committee Republicans or to the American public that Biden, after serving as vice president, stored highly classified documents in a closet at his personal office. NARA, he says, you people learned about these documents days before the 2022 midterms, and you didn't alert anybody that he was violating the law. Meanwhile, NARA instigated a public and unprecedented FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago, former President Trump's home, to get his documents. NARA's inconsistent treatment of recovering classified records held by Trump and Biden raises questions about political bias at your agency. In the aftermath of the FBI August 8th raid, NARA attempted to both minimize its role in the matter and explain that the Obama-Biden administration handling of the documents was proper and complete. In an October 11 statement, NARA claimed it had assumed physical custody of all the Obama-Biden records when president and vice president left office. NARA claimed that reports that indicate or imply that those presidential records were in possession of their former presidents or their representatives are false and misleading. Okay, so remember after the Trump raid, people were talking about the Obama documents. They're like, no, remember people were coming out and they said he had them like in a bowling alley or something. NARA said, no, that's false and misleading. They said that your statement was false and misleading because NARA apparently never corrected that statement after learning that President Biden ultimately had documents at Penn Biden Center, right? They knew about it before was apparently false. They didn't correct the record after they learned about it. Okay, because they put this statement out first in October. We learned about it in November. On November 2nd, Comer continues, he says, a week before the midterm elections, President Biden's personal attorneys, whose level of security clearance remains unknown, quote, discovered classified Biden documents that were quietly handed off to the U.S. DOJ without executing a search warrant. The documents retrieved from Biden's personal office included documents designated as sensitive compartmented information, which is used for highly sensitive information obtained from intelligence sources. Comer says NARA's public enforcement of the Presidential Records Act against Trump, while failing to disclose violations by Biden to Republicans and the American public, raises concerns about your inconsistent policy and the procedures at your agency. As such, please provide us with the following documents. We're in charge now, by the way. We run the Oversight Committee. No later than January 24th, next week, 2023. Comer wants all documents and communications between the National Archives and the White House about the Penn Biden Center documents, all documents and communications between NARA employees and Gary Stern and John Hamilton related to the documents at the Penn Biden Center. And those are new names. I don't know who those are, but they are obviously NARA employees, so we'll keep our eyes on them. All documents and communications between NARA and the DOJ, all documents about any outside entity. They say, additionally, we request that you make Gary Stern, NARA General Counsel, and John Hamilton, NARA Director of Congressional Affairs, available for transcribed interviews no later than January 17th. Get them scheduled. Has that happened? I doubt it. Now, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability has specific jurisdiction over the National Archives, and we have broad authority over this. If you have any questions about this, let us know. Signed, your friend, James Comer. Copying slippery Jamie Raskin, Democrat on the House. Now, you can see that this is a lot that it's going over to the National Archives, and this went out on January 10th. He says, feels like you guys are pretty politically biased over there. Would you care to respond on this one? January 10th goes by. We get a couple days. James Comer hops onto the air, and here he is. On January 14th, this is January 14th, CBS broke the story January 5th, if you remember. And so this is James Comer sitting down with Catherine Herridge talking about NARA. The letter has already gone out to the National Archives. They're saying, what else are you going to get from them, James? Are they responding to you?
Has the National Archives responded to your request for records?
None. No. We've requested a briefing as well, a simple briefing. I have not heard back from the National Archives.
Are subpoenas on the table for the National Archives?
Yeah, if they don't give us the information, I mean, we need to know how serious these documents were.
If they don't give us the information, baby, we're coming in hot with subpoenas. So guess what happens after that threat hits the table? So here you can see Comer sends a letter to NARA, 1/10/2023. Response from NARA on 1/14, no, haven't gotten anything. Fast forward to January 17th, and guess what? NARA responds. Let's take a look at that. This is the letter from the National Archives. The archivist of the United States, the head librarian, Debra Steidel-Wall, who runs all the buildings with all the papers at the archives. She responds to James Comer, and she says, Dear Mr. James, dear Chairman. She says, all right, Congressman, thank you for your letter on January 10th and the opportunity to clarify some facts in regard to our role and the recovery of the records of Trump and of Joe Biden, which in both instances involved the discovery of classified records prompting a referral to the DOJ. The head librarian says, okay, Congressman, in your letter, you have specifically requested documents and interviews concerning the discovery of classified records at Biden's private offices. She says, I want to express my commitment to working cooperatively with you and your staff on this. Our desire to provide you with as much information as we can, however, oh, here it comes, must also be balanced with the need to protect the executive branch. As you're aware, on January 13th, your staff met with my Director of Congressional Affairs, John Hamilton. Ooh, we're going to have to go fill out this timeline, baby. This is going to be good. And my General Counsel, Gary Stern, to discuss our response to your letter. They explained that we had begun the search for responsive records and that we would have to consult with the DOJ regarding the release of any records. So they're putting up a roadblock. They're going to say, oh, man, darn it. Man, we can't cooperate with Congress now. Why? There's a special counsel. Oh, bummer. Everything's got to go through them. You see that little force field that just went up? Robert Hur is going to manage the whole thing, so NARA can't get involved. The DOJ has advised that it will need to consult with the newly appointed Office of Special Counsel in the DOJ to assess whether information can be released without interfering with the special counsel's investigation. So the special counsel, Robert Hur, he's going to just protect everything. This little protective bubble just went up. National Archive. Oh, no, man, we'd love to help you. I'm committed to working cooperatively with you on all of this. However, unfortunately, we can't send you anything, NARA expects to get those records to the DOJ within the next few days, and we have asked that they expedite their review so we can respond to you and your January 24th date as soon as possible, where we'll send you a letter and we say we can't give you anything. DOJ is committed to working with NARA to facilitate your discussions. However, the DOJ was not able to provide us with a specific date by which they will complete their review, since the special counsel was only established on January 12th. Yeah, they could have done that a long time ago. If we had known about this back in November, they could have started this whole process from the beginning. Maybe they should have, rather than, defying what the DOJ asked them to do, obstructing their own DOJ's investigation. It is my understanding that you would like to interview Mr. Stern and Mr. Hamilton on the same topics. I respectfully request that you agree to postpone the scheduling of the interviews until the DOJ completes its review of the documents, which will probably take 35 years, since any restrictions that apply to the documents will necessarily apply to the interviews. Head librarian Debra says, Dear Mr. Comer, in this initial response to you, I would like to address the concerns you've raised about NARA conducting its work with political bias. Says that you stated in your very racist letter to us, you said that NARA's public enforcement of the Presidential Records Act against Trump raises concerns about the appearance of political bias. And Debra says, well, all right, here, Mr. Comer. As my lawyer explained to you, NARA treats all of its communications with the White House, the DOJ, and former presidents and vice presidents as presumptively confidential. Unless we're raiding your house with the FBI. Then it's just sort of presumptively public because everybody can see the FBI agents, raiding your house. For this reason, NARA did not affirmatively discuss or disclose to our oversight committees or to the public our activities concerning the return to our custody of either the Biden presidential records or the Trump presidential records, or our referral of both matters to the DOJ because we found classified information. These people are something else, man. It's unbelievable. She's like, we didn't disclose anything about what happened at Trump. We didn't say anything. We didn't publicize that. Just like we didn't publicize Joe Biden. No, but you raided Trump's house. You communicated to the DOJ that that was appropriate because you demanded your books back. So no. You didn't maybe technically announce it, but the FBI did. Only when those topics were subsequently reported to the press, approximately 9 months after the communication began on the Trump matter and 2.5 months after the Biden matter, did NARA begin to respond to queries from you and the predecessor chairwoman, and only then in a manner that would not harm the integrity of the DOJ investigations. Accordingly, our actions and responses with respect to both are entirely consistent and without any political bias. Yeah, because they did the same thing, it unfolded very differently. These people are so dishonest. They knew back in November, that Joe Biden had potential other documents at other locations. Essentially the same problem that they had with Trump. People who didn't have the right to possess the documents could still access and potentially possess the documents. It's literally the same thing. They told Joe Biden's lawyers, stop rummaging around the different locations. They kept doing it. The DOJ knows they kept doing it because they found the documents and called the DOJ and said, we found more documents. which is exactly the same thing that they said they had to move in on with Trump to prevent from happening. Remember? Same thing. So she's actually not being entirely consistent. She's being very dishonest here. She is trying to make these two things the same, and she's saying that, oh no, we only actually discussed them after they were publicly reported. Yeah, but you shined a big spotlight on Trump's house, and you set off fireworks in his backyard, and everybody knew about that, and you initiated it. She says, additionally, as I noted to you in my August 16th response, Nara had no knowledge of and played absolutely no role in the FBI's August search of the estate, nor of the prior subpoena that the DOJ had issued. This is a lie by omission. We've talked about this here on this channel. Her initial letter initiated the whole thing. Somebody initiated the complaint that Trump had outstanding documents. Who initiated the complaint to the FBI? The FBI didn't just go on its own and come out of the blue and say, gosh, we think we should just go investigate Trump and his documents. Somebody who had ownership or should have ownership of the documents is supposed to have custody, possessory interest of them. That's the archivist. She initiated the whole thing with the DOJ. Now she's saying I had absolutely no role in the FBI raid. That's probably true. I imagine that the FBI did not bring the National Archivist, Debra, down to the raid or any of her archival employees. But she filed the complaint. It had to originate from somebody. She's like a prosecutor filing a complaint or a law enforcement officer filing a complaint. She has to make the complaint. The DOJ is investigating the criminal charge reported by the archives and launching the FBI as the law enforcement agencies to go execute the investigation. And now she's telling you she had no involvement in it? She's lying by omission. It's very dishonest. I would also like to address the concern you raised about our October 11th statement, saying that Obama's records were in a storage facility in Chicago, saying that those are somehow still under the control of Obama. People were pointing out Obama's hypocrisy, kind of a thing. Please note that at the very end of the presidential administration, this is interesting, NARA receives only the presidential and the vice presidential records that the departing administration provides us. Listen, we are never able to know whether we have all such records. Okay, so a whole separate problem with what is going on here is we have been trying to understand what the final, who's in charge of all the library books? Is there a giant spreadsheet of confidential documents that says, okay, Trump has this one, checked out. It's due back in 21 days. Or Joe Biden has this document. It's checked out, due back in 21 days. Is there an inventory of classified documents? Or can somebody just create a document and call it classified and nobody really knows where it originated? In other words, there's no chain of custody for all of these classified documents that are just floating around the ether all over the place. Can it be possible that somebody exits with classified documents and materials and nobody ever knows about them? The answer to that question is yes, because she said that here. The departing administration provides us with everything they've got. We are never able to know whether we have all such records. They don't even know what the total inventory is. So I guess they require people to self-report. Now, they had a big problem with Trump having overdue library books, right? He took a big portion of these out and they said, we know you have those and we want those back right now. But evidently, they didn't even know about Joe Biden's records. So doesn't that make it worse for Joe? I mean, Trump, at least they knew about the records. They knew where they were. They could go vet them and make sure that they were secured, stored properly. They did that several times. They went down there. Trump even said hello to the FBI agents when they were down there. They put padlocks on the whole thing. They knew that that inventory existed and they knew that Trump had checked those out, but why not Joe Biden's? And I'm sure it's not appropriate to keep those classified documents without any information being provided to the government. At least in Trump's case, there was some information provided. In Biden's, it was totally under the radar. And why was it? And if they don't know, okay, so like this is what is so scary about this. The National Archives, part of the reason we were thinking that they wanted to raid Trump's residence is so that they could bring back and do an inventory of the documents and say, well, we're missing this one, and this one. You had A, B, and C, but we need X, Y, and Z. And we're missing those because they had a total inventory, right? They knew the total. Somebody borrowed that, return my golf club. I know what golf club you have, return that one back. But they don't know what's out there or what's missing. So Joe Biden, I guess, his lawyers, his personal lawyers, according to the National Archives, they can't even tell what they gave back. So now my joke, the joke here that we had about them showing up with shredders, and they gave back 6 documents. Here you go. Here's 6 documents back. Here's 20 documents back. They could have shredded the rest of them, and nobody would know. The National Archives would have no idea. We're never able to know whether we have all such records until November. And they say until November, we were not even aware that any Obama-Biden records were missing until we found out in November. And then they lied to us and they didn't tell us about it at all. They say for the reasons noted above, our policy was not to comment publicly about the recovery of the documents in November. I hope this letter helps to address some of your concerns. I will respond further regarding the document production you've requested. Sincerely, Debra Steidel-Wall, head librarian of the United States, who's very upset with Donald Trump, didn't like any of his comments, and is apparently the most powerful person in the whole stinking country. Also very dishonest because in this letter, she is sort of missing the bigger picture here. Yeah, they're not going to comment on the Biden presidential records. That's fine. We didn't actually want a comment from you. We wanted a criminal referral over to the DOJ and the DOJ to do the same thing, apply the same standard that they did to Trump, which in this case would mean a raid. Any property, I don't care, pick one. Any one of them could have been raided. And they didn't do that because of reasons. Now, of course, we'll continue to cover that. NARA, we'll see if they produce anything worthwhile. And a big question we have is who were the first people on scene? What was the chain of custody from November 2nd to November 3rd, which is a very conveniently missing date, up until November 4th, when it all got transferred over to the DOJ. We'll continue to cover. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video wherever you're watching it. And we'll see you on the next one.